Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. With me in the studio today, I've got Scott from Brig Installations. Scott's travelled all the way down from north of the border. There are some records to contest. We'll get into that in a moment. But first of all, Scott, thank you very much, mate, for all the effort coming down today. Let's talk, mate.
Not at all. No, absolute pleasure to be here.
No, I appreciate it, mate.
Yeah.
So first of all, tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
So I'm Scott, and I own Brig Installations. So I'm a handyman. So probably hated by all the trades collectively. So, So I do paint and decorating. I do laminate flooring. I install TVs on walls, things like that. There is a lot that I do, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that I don't do. So I try to be as honest as I can. If I get inquiries, asking Scott, can you do X, Y, Z? I'll obviously, yeah, I can do that. Or like, I'm maybe not the best man for the job. Here's my recommendation.
Fair play, mate. there is that little bit of like there's tribalism, isn't there, within the trades of, well, I am a decorator. I mean, I don't market myself as a handyman, but I've been in and around the building trades all my life. There are other trades I can do.
Yeah.
I can install flooring, I can do tiling. I don't offer it as a professional service only because I'm very conscious of where my niche is. And although I can do things like install flooring to a professional standard, I know I'm nowhere near as quick as what a carpenter would be. And it's all the tools, having all the right things for the job. But if you can offer those professional services, I don't see there's any reason why you can't say, I can do carpentry and decorating and a bit of plumbing.
Yeah.
As long as you can do it to a professional level, it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
So all credit to you for that, mate. The one thing I want to settle before we get into the conversation about yourself, there's another two prominent Scotsmen that have sat in that chair, and there's a record to be discussed.
Yes.
And we have a new contender.
We have a new
contender. So, Scott, I'll leave it to you, mate. But where do you... Let's explain this for the listeners. So the other two Scotsmen I'm referring to are, of course, Murph, the kilted painter, and Stuart. So between the three of you, where are you in the demographic?
So I'm roughly in the middle. So you have Stuart, you've got myself, then you've got Murph. Yeah.
So to clarify then, so Murph is definitely the furthest away.
He is, yeah.
And you've got Stuart McLean, who's slightly closer than you.
Yeah, so he's roughly about an hour or so south of me.
I think it's safe to say then that you've knocked Stuart out of contention.
Yeah, I'm
sorry, Stuart.
Sorry, Stuart.
Stuart's record's been beaten. He held it for a while. He was the first one to hold the longest distance record, in fairness. But the Murph record. So there's a bit of contention here, isn't there?
Yeah, I think on a technicality, I've beaten Murph because he was already down this way when he came on the studio. So
he was. Scott, do you know what, mate? I'm going to give it to you now. You have the record for the longest travelled guest. I'm going to add in by car because in November we've got some people coming over from America. But I don't really know whether you can... I think there's got to be a difference between car and plane. Yeah. So longest person travelled by car is Scott from Brig Installations, coming down from... What area of Scotland are you?
So I'm Perth.
Perth.
So it's called the heart of Scotland because you're basically not too far from everywhere.
Okay.
Basically, and it's kind of the right at kind of bottom of the Highlands, so the start of the Highlands, basically.
So we're in the Midlands of the UK, Midlands of England here. So you're like the Midlands of Scotland, as it were.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you've got like your central belt, where it's like your Glasgow kind of way. Then obviously kind of Perth above that. But,
okay.
Yeah.
There we go then. New record holder, longest distance travelled. This man here, Scott. Murph, you're not completely out of contention, mate. You've still got the longest distance home. But you're going to have to do a round trip if you want to knock Scott off the top now. So with that settled, let's get into the conversation then, mate. In terms of, everything that we're doing with the podcast, centering around people's journeys, people's mental health journeys. Where would you say your journey started? I know we talked pre-record, and you said it was probably childhood.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that then, Scott. How was your childhood? How was growing up for you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of primary school, secondary school, absolutely fine. There was nothing um, really to talk about kind of there. It was all kind of normal. So it's kind of more so into the personal life kind of sort of things. So I'm actually adopted myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So my parents just they couldn't have children themselves. Just one of
Do
those
you mind me
things.
asking how old you were when you were adopted?
Brand new.
Oh,
I was,
baby. Okay,
yes, yeah.
okay.
So there was actually a mistake that happened. So when my parents were obviously going through the adoption process, they were meant to have actually been given a baby that was at least 6 months old,
Yeah.
kind of 6 months plus. But they'd made a mistake on the paperwork and they'd actually put from 0 upwards. So I was 10 days old
Wow.
when the adoption was all kind of finalised, and I went to my new home
Yeah. So of
basically.
course
So
you would have known nothing about this.
no,
I mean, I might be jumping forward a load of steps here, mate, but was there an age where you found that out or had that conversation, or were your parents? I gather from what I've heard of adoptive families, there's a couple of different ways that sort of parents do it. They either don't say anything, and there
yeah,
comes like a point where you're X amount of age and you get sat down and have that conversation, or it's always very open from day one.
yeah.
What was it like for you?
So for myself, I've always known
Okay.
as long as I can remember. So yeah, I mean you're completely right. There is obviously some people out there, unfortunately, that don't find out until like their 18th birthday or like well into their adulthood,
Mm,
which must be obviously devastating. Obviously having to comprehend that,
yeah.
that information. But yeah, so because I was always told kind of age appropriate kind of facts, but obviously as I've got older and older, they've gone obviously more in depth on the reasons behind the adoption, kind of things like that. And I think because they did it that way, it's made it a lot easier to to process,
Mm.
to process it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't judge anyone for anything. I mean, that whole situation, I think people that adopt people, it is such a commendable thing to do. And obviously, it's a really well needed service. So I wouldn't want to stand and criticise each way. I think what I can say is if I was in that position, I'd have hoped that I'd have had what you had,
Yeah,
which would be because I can just imagine that sort of like the reveal would be really jarring and
yeah,
something to get your head around, although most likely done for the right reasons. But yeah, I mean, back to you, Scott. So
yeah,
first of all, you're adopted,
yeah.
and how were things then growing up at home? Was that what you would say was not like an atypical childhood, or?
Um, really, I see. It was kind of it felt normal, So I
Mm,
think it's because it was openly spoken about. It wasn't really an issue per se, like in my childhood. Obviously, you get everybody else who's kind of been adopted probably gets asked the exact same question as, "Oh, do you want to find your birth parents?"
mm,
What's your take on that? And for the reason why I was obviously put up for adoption is the reason why I've never been interested in kind of taking that forward, and and looking for the biological kind of side of things. It's not really something I'll kind of go into,
mm.
but yeah, I was quite content
Yeah,
just not knowing.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
absolutely fine, mate. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got a happy household that you're growing up in, it is what it is, isn't it?
yeah,
And as you say, I think if you told that from point one, you didn't know any different, so it would
yeah,
become your normality.
yeah,
But school and all that lot went well. You
yeah.
said primary, secondary. Were you in 2 tier or 3 tier? Let's pause there a moment to thank this episode's sponsors, Zinza. Have you heard of Zinza's Perma White? Perma-White is tough, it's scrubbable, and it's the best mould-resistant finish to use in high moisture areas like kitchens and bathrooms. We use this in our business all the time. It's designed to resist cracking, peeling and blistering for up to 7 years, and it can be tinted to any RAL or NCS colour on the chart that you want at selected retailers. It's water-based, it's low odour, it's easy to work with, it's quick to recoat. What more could you want in a bathroom quality and kitchen quality emulsion? If you haven't already, go and check out Zinza's Perma-White. Thank you to Zinza. Let's get back to the episode.
See, we in Scotland, it's completely different to what it's like down here. So I think down here you've got reception, don't you? So
even down here, mate, it's different. So where I grew up, we had what we called 3-tier schooling. So we had it was almost like 4-4-3 or 4-4-2. No, 4-4-4. Sorry, not 4-4-2. I'm thinking of football formations. But we had primary, what we referred to where I'm from as middle school and then high school.
Right.
So it's 3 schools. And then high school, you'd go from, I think, year 9 to year 11, which is where you sat your GCSEs, and then you'd do sixth form if you wanted to.
Yeah.
However, even around here now, it's changed to a 2-tier system. So both of my kids have gone through 2-tier, where it's just primary and secondary.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we're still the 3-tier. So you do nursery from, I think it's around about the age of 2-3. You go into nursery, then you go into primary 1. So you obviously have year 1, year 2, so forth. Where we kind of flip it. So you go into primary 1 from the age of 4 or 5. So your primary 1 right up to primary 7. Then your secondary school, so in your high school, we call that. So you're around about the 11, 12-year-old going to first year. So we kind of go back. So obviously you kind of carry on your numbers. We kind of restart. So
you're right. I got you.
Yeah, first year, second, third, fourth, fifth, then 6th year. Then once you've done 6th year,
you go back to first.
That once you've done 6th year, that's you.
Oh, you're out.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Finish with school. Yeah.
So was it sound for you all the way through?
Yeah. Well, I left school when I was 15, so 4th year. So the reason for that is I was given the opportunity, a few of us, to do like a college course in 4th year. It was basically like a taster of all the trades. So you had like your kind of paint and decorating, you had kind of plumbing, electrical, kind of brickwork, kind of things like that. So you did that. You were still at school, but you attended college kind of doing this. And obviously back then, I know the laws kind of changed now, but back then you could leave school in 4th year. So when you're about 15, 16, once obviously you sat your exams, that was you could leave. There was no law to keep you.
Yeah, I mean now I think down here anyway it's 18.
Yeah,
they're meant to be in education till 18 anyway.
Yeah, that's the same as Scotland now. Is you can still leave school when you're 16, but you must be in further education, whether that's an apprenticeship, whether you're at college or university. You must be in some sort of educational kind of program.
Yeah, it's the same here.
If not, you've got to stay until you're 18.
Yeah. Although, speaking from personal experience, I don't believe it's enforced. A lot of my son's friends, because my son's 17, a lot of his friends left school at 16 and didn't go to college and didn't get an apprenticeship. And there's not. I think it's more at the moment anyway. I believe it seems like it's more guidance than regulated.
Yeah.
There's certainly nobody getting a knock at the door for the kids not attending school or college. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that, I mean, I've got quite strong views on education or the education system in the UK. And I don't believe that personally that kids should be held in education or that system for that long. I think by the time you're 16, you should be able to go and tread your own path.
Yeah.
And not all kids, it's there for everyone, but to mandate it, I think I don't agree with. Back to you, mate. Anyway, so what was the next stage for you?
Um, so so where are we now?
Coming out of school
All right.
into high school, as it
Yeah.
were, or your final years, and you went
Um,
into your apprenticeship.
yeah. So when I'd left school, I've had a lot, like too many jobs. I think a lot of kind of retail kind of based jobs as well.
Mm,
Um, I'd gone to college when I was about 18 to do a mechanics course. Um, and when I was in that course, I was given the opportunity to do a partsman apprenticeship with one of the car brands. So basically ordering all the parts and
mm.
basically the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So I did that for a few years. Um, got a bit bored of that. Then I went into kind of labouring. So I was labouring for a ground working company for a couple of years. So
That's hard graft.
it is,
Yeah, digging holes is not easy.
yeah. So Stuart will actually know this. So the Edinburgh bypass, the A720, I worked on that at the time when it was in
Oh,
development.
okay.
Yeah, so to be honest, a lot of fanning about and
Yeah, yeah,
especially when you're kind of in your late teens, kind of early 20s.
yeah.
You don't take things too seriously, and you just kind of muck about
Mm,
and things. So yeah, did that. Then I went I went back into retail after I did that. Then after that, I got into the care sector. So I started actually off working in a nursing home. I was in a nursing home for a couple of years. I did my back in, so I've actually had to have two operations on my lower back
okay.
as well. So the first time it happened, I must have been about 21, 22, thereabouts I was.
That's quite young, yeah.
Yeah. So what had happened is there was, obviously without going into obviously GDPR, going into too much
Yeah, yeah.
information, basically there was a resident and he stood up. I went to go into a system, kind of back down. His body kind of turned one way and mine kind of turned the other,
Mm,
and it just something kind of clicked and snapped,
yeah.
and the pain just shot straight up. But when obviously this was going on, the lead kind of nurse was kind of walking past. I said, "Can you give me a hand over here?" And she says, "You're a man. You'll manage fine." Yeah.
Yeah.
So so that was me. Obviously, didn't know at the time what had happened, and I was off for quite a while off work. I could barely move. I couldn't even put my socks on.
Mm,
Nothing like that in the morning. The pain was like excruciating, just kind of lower back and going right up. And it was coming down the legs as well.
yeah.
The pain, I had kind of weakness in my legs. So um, the GP sent me to physio, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'd obviously seen on a previous episode
Yeah, my own. Yeah, with the thing with it,
yeah,
it's
your knee.
yeah. Again, I have to be careful. I don't want to run the NHS under the ground
Yeah,
with it because they've got their systems and their reasons. But I just don't understand that. If you go to a GP presenting with any kind of problem, whether it's muscular, skeletal, whatever, to me, the common sense thing is, well, scan it. Let's have a
yeah,
look and see why. But this thing of there's a pain as it might be, and like me myself went through the situation with my knee.
mm,
The first thing they say is, well, we're going to recommend you to physio to fix it. So,
yeah,
well, how do you know physio's going to fix that?
yeah,
And in my case, it would have been a complete waste of time
yeah,
for 6 months. So,
yeah.
so yeah, what was your experience? So they sent you to physio.
Yeah, so I did a few sessions. I went back to the GP. I says, "Look, this is really not working. The pain is just getting worse and
Mm,
worse." Right, okay. Well, we'll send you for an MRI. just to see exactly what's
Which is what
going
they should
on.
have done first, really.
So 2 days after my MRI, doctors phoned me up, like, look, we need you to come back for these results now, sort of thing. So I went back to the doctors and says, yeah, so you've got 2 prolapse discs in your L4 and L5. That's why physio's not working.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, just to clarify that, Scott, what a prolapse disc is? What?
Basically, the discs had shifted
Out of
kind of one
line.
way, and they were kind of pressing against all the nerves and
Okay.
everything else. So they were. I'm sure your discs are kind of like your shock absorbers,
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So they had basically shifted and moved all the nerves kind of with it. That's why, and obviously, there was just so much pain in my, because obviously all the nerves in your back is all connected to everybody else. That's why I was getting obviously the pain in the
Yeah.
legs and
Yeah.
things like that. So, so I was sent for surgery. So basically, they just shaved and kind of cut away the 2 prolapse discs that had kind of been
Right.
causing the issues.
See,
And
mate, whenever anyone says like surgery, for
Yeah.
one, is serious, but spinal surgery to me, I don't know, it just holds more of a, I don't know, it just sounds more serious. Because I always think with me, and I think spinal surgery, I think if they get that wrong, it's paralysis.
yeah,
So that's why I'm always a bit like, fucking hell, your spine's quite important, isn't it?
we're going to. There's a wee bit more to that, but we'll come back.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, Worcester. For over 170 years, Worcester have crafted the highest quality paint applicators and accessories in their home of Worcester, Ohio. Worcester produce premium equipment that provides a brilliant finish and stands up to the hard work that professional decorators do in their job every day. Their top quality tools include the Gold Edge and Silver Tip brush range. They also produce a wide range of rollers and innovative tools such as the Lockjaw, the Pelican paint kettle, their whole range of rollers and innovative tools such as the Dust Eater. These are all tools that we use in our business on a weekly basis. Worcester's dedicated to better results with less effort. Thank you to Worcester for supporting the Talking Tradesman podcast. Let's get back to the conversation.
So after the surgery, woke up, no pain. I couldn't believe it. It was like the difference between
Night and day.
night and day. Also, you still had obviously the surgical pain and discomfort, but I could move. So I was 3 months recovery for that. More so just for the incision itself, obviously, kind of where it is. Knocked me off, kind of stabilised for kind of for 3 months at least. No heavy lifting, nothing like that. Just to give it a chance to heal. And see, I don't do sitting about, do nothing. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
I do absolutely hate it. So exactly, and there's no word I lie, exactly a year later, my back went again. I thought, right, what's going on here? So went back to the GP, did another scan. Because obviously I've now got history on my back, so they didn't bother with the physio or nothing like that. Just right, let's get you straight for a scan, especially because it had only been a year since my previous surgery, and the sciatic nerve had become trapped.
Okay.
So again, that pain was excruciating.
Yeah.
Again, I could barely move at all. Couldn't sit, couldn't stand. I couldn't do nothing. It was horrendous. So what they did this time is they put in a titanium spacing device into my back. So it's made of titanium. It's a bit like a butterfly.
Yeah.
So it was actually in the exact same spot, the L4, L5, where I had my previous surgery exactly a year later. Just opened up, obviously the same scar up, and it's like a butterfly, kind of goes in and it opens up.
Okay.
And it allows the nerve just more room.
Space. Yeah.
to play about with.
I've
So
got a small amount of experience with it, mate, in terms of, and it's important to illustrate just how debilitating it is. So I was in a car crash. I don't. It's irrelevant, really. Some years ago, and as a result of that, because I basically got somebody went into the back of me, and I saw it coming. So I saw it in the mirror, and I thought, oh fuck. And I'd got my son next to me, and I actually turned to put my arm around him
yeah,
because this geezer went into the back of me doing about 90. I was on a motorway. I was doing 70 myself. It wasn't 90 into
yeah,
standing, but so I turned to put my arm around my son, and because of the angle of my body when he then shunted me, I ended up with a bulging disc,
right,
which is actually a little bit deceptive because when they call it a bulging disc, it's not the disc, it's the fluid in between the discs,
yeah,
and it bulges out, and then eventually it actually heals itself, sort of like, and falls off if you don't aggravate it and make it bigger. And I was misdiagnosed. I was diagnosed with sciatica initially. And it was only after I had a scan that they actually found out it was a bulging disc.
right,
But similar sorts of things where I'd have a day where I'd be fine, and the
yeah,
next day I'd move a certain way. And so I know what you mean with the shooting pains. My left foot would go numb, so
yes,
I'd
yeah,
lose feeling in my foot, which was just bizarre. And it was only after that started happening that I then got the scan. You
yeah,
know, and the same sort of thing. I mean, to be honest with you, again, the NHS, the GP was shocking, if I'm
yeah,
honest. The
yeah,
advice was completely wrong. All they did was give me medication.
yeah,
I got sent away with a load of amitriptyline.
mm-hmm.
Basically, you've just pulled something, basically. Go and take this, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
And if I'm honest, at the time, I was training quite a lot in the gym, and it was a PT that actually said to me, because I'd not been for a couple of weeks, oh, what's happened? I said, I've done my back in. What do you mean? What you on? And we had this conversation, and he went, mate, what they've given you is a waste of time because you're just masking it. You don't know what it is. Go to a chiropractor.
yeah,
And that was what started the path to actual diagnosis.
yeah,
But yeah, just to sort of share my circumstance, nowhere near your
mm-hmm.
severity, but I remember just how debilitating that was. Certainly working in a physical job,
Yeah,
and me being self-employed again, it's like anything that stops you working, that hits you in all sorts of ways.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, because obviously I've had obviously kind of both operations as well, especially in a year kind of
And you were
window.
only 21, 22 at this
Yeah,
age.
so yes, I was maybe 22 for the first, and I was 23
That's how,
for the
when I
next.
think of back
So
surgery, I kind of think of like my age now,
yeah,
you know, like midlife, but that young age, you don't
yeah.
really expect people to be having back
No, you
surgery.
don't. 'Cause I obviously for when my back went again a second time, I asked the neurosurgeon. It says, "Has this got anything to do with the first surgery?" Just because it is so close to one another. It's like, no, no, no. It's just one of those things that could have happened to anyone at any time. It's
Mm,
just one of those things. Um, so that was like another 3 month recovery for that. So I've now obviously got this like titanium, device in
mm.
my back. Um, so which means that if I was to lean backwards, I can only lean back slightly because it kind of stops me.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It just stops me from
Yeah.
leaning as back as what you should. But I mean, I'm always going to have a sore back as well. So a few years after that surgery, I don't know if you'd seen that there was a neurosurgeon who was all in the news and the papers for botched surgeries and things like
No,
that.
not. No.
Um, he was actually that was actually the surgeon that did both of my surgeries. So yeah, so he's been like obviously struck off.
Right.
He's actually fled the country, and he's actually still practicing medicine in another country and still performing surgeries and things like that.
No way.
And obviously the UK are obviously trying to bring him back.
What was he struck off for? Like, what was the
So
severity of
there
it?
was a lot of surgeries where he'd completely done the wrong surgery or completely botched it. So I know there's one gentleman who'd gone in for back surgery and he came out worse than when he went in. He can barely walk. It's all online.
Mm.
It's all been obviously documented. There was a woman who'd gone in for, I'm sure, a brain tumor, and instead of removing the brain tumor, he removed her tear ducts instead.
How the fuck do you get it that wrong?
Yeah,
I mean, if it's online, mate, I mean, I don't think there's any issue in saying, but what's the bloke's
no.
name?
He was Professor Eljamel. There was a documentary on him and,
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah,
And this bloke operated on you
he,
twice.
he did. Yeah. So because when obviously this all kind of came to light and everything else, obviously doctors, my GP, he kind of called me back, and he sent me for another MRI just to kind of basically they're just double checking all his work,
Mm.
especially because those two surgeries were so close together.
Yeah.
And at the time, I did ask, has this got anything to do with the first surgery? Just something just wasn't sitting right. But they did all the MRIs and done all the checks, and they couldn't see anything untoward.
Mm.
They're still kind of saying, oh, it's just one of those things, that's just completely coincidental. But yeah,
Yeah, they say lightning doesn't strike twice, so don't they? It sounds, yeah. It's I don't want to get too conspiratorial with it, but you wonder whether, unless it's something glaring,
hmm
whether they would really want to highlight that, because then it opens up obviously doors to compensation and,
yeah,
financial penalties for
yeah.
things like that. So, but none of that ever came to fruition with you.
No, well, that's the thing, that they've not brought him to trial yet.
How long ago was this then, Scott? Because I mean, if we're talking,
Yeah,
I don't know how old you are, mate, so I'm
yeah.
speculating, but
I'm a. See, that's the thing. I need to ask my wife. What's my
you can take
age?
a few years off for the
Yeah,
camera, mate. Don't
I
worry.
know.
Scott's only 18.
36. So
Okay.
36 now. So this would have been,
So we're talking 12, 13 years ago.
yeah. So where are we? 2010 was the first one. 2011 was the second surgery.
Okay.
So, and obviously it was a few years after that
Yeah.
is when it all
Blew
kind of,
up.
yeah, blew up, and obviously lots of people kind of coming forward, and obviously they did a documentary on him as well. Um, so he was meant to be this top neurosurgeon.
Mm.
Also kind of working for the NHS. That's the thing. And also when it kind of all came out of light, he just jumped on a plane and
So what had he
left.
done then? Had he like fraudulent? Had he blagged his qualifications or
Well,
what?
no, it's just purely down to doing the wrong surgeries on the wrong people. Um, when he has done what he's meant to, he's not been doing it properly. There's been kind of reports from kind of other doctors and surgeons trying to kind of whistleblow as well about
Mm.
him. What they've seen themselves has obviously just been kind of brushed under. Obviously, when it all kind of came out,
That's terrifying, mate. I mean,
yeah,
removing somebody's tear ducts when they were meant to be doing brain
yeah,
surgery.
yeah, I know. That's the thing. So, like I was saying, that they're obviously they're trying to bring him back to
Where is he
face.
now?
I'm not too sure. I'm honestly don't know. There's speculation where he could be,
Mm.
but you know yourself, he could be anywhere.
Probably gone somewhere where it's very hard to extradite him back.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, I couldn't say confidently because, like I said, you've got some people saying, "Oh, he's in this country," other people saying
Yeah.
he's in this country. But I've actually kind of seen myself as one of the lucky ones.
Well, by the sounds of it,
Um,
yeah, if there wasn't
yeah,
anything glaring. And how is your back now, or how's it been for the last 12
yeah.
years?
I think I subconsciously look after it and I be
Mm.
careful. I don't push myself too much. I get pain every day from my back, but it's like manageable. I'm used to it kind of sort of pain.
Yeah.
Not enough to kind of to warrant having to take painkillers every day, kind of things like that. I
But
get
you're aware it's there.
yeah, yeah. So I get wee kind of twinges, and I take that as kind of warning kind of
Mm.
noises, just to calm down a bit.
I would imagine, mate. I mean, having to live with that for from such a young age as well. I mean, your early 20s, I look back at what I was doing in my early 20s, and it was like, I was playing football, rugby,
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. And I would imagine that rule you out of anything like that.
yeah,
So it must have had quite an, I guess, again, it's sort of like what you touched on before about what you've always been used to.
yeah.
But it's definitely been limiting, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, it has been. I've, you know, I've just kind of, I've just kind of gone, got the surgeries done the recovery, and just gone back to it, and just kind of
Mm,
put it behind us, and not really kind of thought about it too much. But like I said, I've always kind of seen myself as one of the lucky ones. I am nowhere near as bad as what.
well, mate, operating on
Other
your
people.
spine, there's a few ways that could have really gone wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think and also kind of that's why, because I'd also had two surgeries done by the same surgeon. I think that's obviously why the NHS kind of wanted to,
Check it out.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of send me for CTs and MRIs,
Mm,
and just kind of just check, go through everything like with a fine tooth comb, just to make sure.
mate. Yeah. Well, thank God. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thankfully that you weren't one of the unlucky ones. But what a horrific
yeah,
thing that even happened.
yeah,
I mean, it's beyond negligent, isn't it? When
mm,
I can't to do completely the wrong surgery on somebody. I mean, it's like horror film stuff there.
yeah,
You know.
mhm.
But yeah, Jesus. Um, So moving on from there, mate, I got a bit hung up on that. My head was going to like
Yeah.
a few films I've watched, but I was thinking like this geezer's the real life sort of human centipede. Seen that? If you haven't seen that film, don't watch it.
It's a comedy, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can look at it that way, but yeah. So moving on from there, then
Yeah.
Scott, what's where did life take you then?
So yeah, so like I said, I was in the care sector for about 10 years, and from being out 6 in the morning until the back 11 at night, kind of 9 days straight, have a day off, do another 9 days straight
You said that quite quickly, then, mate. But what
for
you just said was being out from 6 in the morning till 11 at night.
yeah,
That's quick maths. What's that? That's a long, I mean, that's a long ass day, but that's what's 15 hour days.
yeah, no, quite easily. It's yeah, so I did that for a few years, and it was getting to the point where you know it's it's one of those kind of jobs where you kind of feel it's a bit thankless
Mm,
as well, and there's just so much pressure on all carers as well. There's kind of lack, a lot more service users than there is carers
yeah.
available. I mean, I've been out of it for a few years now, so I don't know what it's like, today. But when I was in it, it was that you had to do those hours, because you cared for all these service users. You
Mm.
didn't want to let them down. You wanted to make sure that they were still getting somebody going into them.
Did you feel
Um,
like there was a pressure on you to provide that?
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. There's several kind of reasons why I left the care sector. One of them as well is I kind of worked my way up to kind of managerial kind of level, and there was an incident where there was an accusation made against some of the carers. So obviously I liaised with social services, obviously kind of spoken to the carers in question, kind of things like that, and just something didn't sit right. Um, and there was, now which was it? One of the carers had reported an issue. That's what you meant. If you see something that's not quite right, report it. So they did that, and also it was looked into, and it was like, so kind of social services wanted to put the blame onto somebody,
Mm.
and it turned out that obviously what had happened to the service user was actually caused by one of the family members.
Okay.
absolutely nothing to do with, any of the girls. And I fought so hard to obviously fight their corner. And it was kind of like everybody was kind of getting punished for whistleblowing and kind of standing up for themselves and not taking the blame. Um, and I know that, like in the care sector as well, that whistleblowing can end your career. Um, you're meant to obviously report certain things that you see, but in doing so, it can actually go against GDPR and things like that. So it's kind of a catch-22. Again, I don't know what it's like now,
Mm.
but back then it was really bad. My wife, she kind of fell ill as well, so she's got fibromyalgia.
Okay. Explain what that is, mate, because I'm not aware.
So again, going back to kind of GPs, things like that, and obviously kind of watching kind of other interviews that you've done as well.
Mm.
That's one of those things is that GPs don't really know a lot about neither.
Yeah.
So basically, there's been new studies kind of come out as well, and for a long time, there's been like no information on fibromyalgia, apart from people thinking it's just in your head, But
Yeah.
it has so many kind of side effect, symptoms, like fatigue, pain, brain fog.
I've heard of it. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
I have heard it mentioned before. I'm not sure where. One of the things, actually, I'll point out quickly
Hmm.
that I'm very conscious of when it comes to GPs is what that stands for. People
Yeah.
say GP and they think, oh, it just means, it's doctor.
Yeah.
GP stands for general practitioner,
Yeah.
general. And if you think the human body is a fascinating thing
Hmm.
and it can go wrong in 1,000 ways,
Yeah.
for one person to know everything, to put your faith and trust in your doctor, who a lot of the doctors they're doing their best,
Yeah.
but ultimately they would have to have such a vast wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's why you have specialists and consultants that specialize in,
Yeah.
you wouldn't go to a general surgeon
Mhm.
generally.
Yeah.
Like most surgeons will specialize in whether it's the heart, the brain, the
Yeah.
knee, like when my knee went wrong, I went to a knee
Yeah.
specialist. This chap deals with knees all day long.
Yeah.
With a GP, it is, that they are a general practitioner,
Yeah.
and to expect them to know everything.
Mhm.
Um, and all I think the reason I'm pointing that out is my own personal experience of dealing with a GP is don't just take what they say as
Yeah.
gospel.
Yeah.
If, a lot of the time your body best, if something's not right. If you get told one thing and you don't agree with it, get a second opinion
Mhm.
because sometimes it can be life saving.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've heard of a lot of cases of misdiagnosis that have either caused more long term pain, exasperation of a condition, or unfortunately misdiagnosed things that have been far more serious than, you know, people that have gone for pain and been sent away with pain relief, and it turns
Yeah.
out that actually it's cancer.
Yeah.
So it's always keen to trust your gut, I guess.
Yeah.
Trust your own instincts on
Yeah.
things. If you don't feel that something's right, even if the GP's told
Mhm.
you it's fine, follow it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, mate, I
Yeah.
jumped
No.
into your story there. But
No. No. Not at all. Yeah.
fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia.
Okay,
So, there's, let's say, yeah. So there's been like say new developments, kind of new studies, kind of that have kind of come out kind of recently about looking at the cause and obviously what's actually going on. So obviously for years and years, they've looked at the it being in your head, and it's basically the brain is sending the wrong signals to the wrong parts of the body.
okay,
But with these new studies, they've actually found out that it's not that, it's completely different. But I mean, I'm still kind of learning about it myself.
Mm.
It develops kind of all the time. But I think what's frustrating is that when my wife has to go to the doctor, I've got to go with her
Mm.
um, to fight our corner because she just gets constantly fobbed off. She
Yeah.
goes with anything. Oh, it's just your fibro. Go home and rest. You know, and
So
I think
to push into that a little bit, fibromyalgia. So is it? There's no. It doesn't affect a particular part of the body. It's a neurological condition rather than
yeah.
some.
See again, it's because they're finding out more and more about it all the time.
Mm,
It constantly changes. I'm struggling to kind of keep up with it myself
yeah.
as well. But I mean, she's gone years of different medications, what's going to work, and things like that. It's kind of funny when you kind of mentioned the amitriptyline.
Yeah.
That's what kind of she had to take as well.
Oh, okay. I think
Um,
that drug, it's like a multi-purpose drug. That
yeah,
one. My wife has got sleep conditions. She struggles to sleep, and she takes it most nights, well,
yeah,
all nights, to be honest.
yeah,
I had it because it's got also. I think it's an antidepressant, muscle relaxant, and a sleep like
yeah.
medication. So it's one of them like it treats a whole vast. I actually really didn't like being on it.
Mm-hmm.
I probably, I think when my back was really bad, I maybe took it for I'm not a big fan of medication. If I
Yeah.
can avoid taking it, I will. Don't get me wrong, I take medication when I have to, but I found amitriptyline with me, it made me really groggy.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, it put me to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and that was why I took it, to be honest, because my back. I went through a stage where I was having my back was going into spasm
Yeah.
a lot, and it did serve to relax me and put me to sleep. But I really like the first 3 hours of the following day, I'd feel
Mm-hmm.
really groggy,
Yeah.
dopey. It really seemed to affect me. My wife has
Mm-hmm.
obviously developed a tolerance to it,
Yeah.
and she doesn't. She struggles to sleep without it now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's a whole different story. But yeah, it's one
Yeah.
of those strange drugs that
Yeah.
they
It is.
prescribe for a myriad of treatments.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she found as well, is that she had to take it early enough in the evening
Yeah,
for not to have that the grogginess in the
it takes a
morning.
while to kick in as well, Scott,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because my wife, she'll take it. Oh, I've got to take my pills so I can sleep tonight, and she might take them at 7
Yeah.
because she wants to go to sleep at 11.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was only on a low dose. I think I was only on 10 milligrams,
Yeah.
but it really affected me.
Yeah.
Probably because I don't, I had no tolerance to it.
Yeah.
But I'd find the next day, getting up for work 6, 7 in the morning, I was dopey, groggy
Yeah.
till 10.
Yeah.
And it was like moving with I can only describe it as like moving around with an imaginary weighted vest on. It was just
Yeah.
everything felt heavy and
Mm.
slow, and yeah, which I guess is the muscle relaxant side of
Yeah.
it.
I mean, what it's kind of used for as well is actually blocking out the pain receptors coming from the brain to actually
Okay.
kind of block that pain going to where it should be going.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean, she was on that for a few years. Obviously, then got changed again and things like that. So I'm kind of digress here.
mm,
So when she was kind of first diagnosed with fibromyalgia and obviously going through all the different medications, things like that, and I missed our youngest son's first birthday as well due to work. I was on call that weekend, and I had several people kind of phoned in sick, and obviously then trying to delegate. The staff that I did have, and obviously myself as well, to provide care to service users. That's what I did. But if I didn't have enough staff, I'd still go out into the field and help out as well when I could. And yeah, so I missed my son, our youngest son's first birthday, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because
mm.
obviously I'll never get that back,
Yeah, man.
and I kind of feel like that I've had to kind of make up for that. He's now 11. So, but in those 11 years, 10 years even. I feel like I've had to kind of make up for that all those years. I
Mm.
still feel so guilty. Um,
The
for
irony
missing
there,
them.
Scott, is he'll never remember his first birthday.
Yeah,
Most kids' first birthdays, first Christmas. It's more of an event, I think, for the parents a lot of the time.
yeah,
So you did miss something in terms of you missed that event, probably for yourself and your wife. Obviously, your son's not going to remember
yeah,
that you weren't there on his first birthday, but I understand the weight of missing those things, mate. I've gone through a lot of that myself,
yeah,
so yeah, I can resonate on that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I've been is yeah, you're right. It's having that guilt, and also trying to put right as well.
Mm,
Kind of with them, but yeah, I mean he's not going to know that I wasn't there.
mm.
Yeah, but I do.
Thankfully so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Thankfully so. I mean, maybe if it was, his 10th birthday, he would,
yeah,
but the first few, realistically, they don't, they don't know what day of the week it is when they're 1 year old. Do they, bless them? But when you say it was the straw that broke the camel's back,
yeah.
what do you mean by that?
I just had enough. I thought, you know what, this is not worth it.
Mm,
This it's not worth, like I said, going out, 15 hours a day, um, for 9 days straight, having, to have one day off. I am missing, you know, um, time with the family, missing all these kind of milestones as well, with the boys.
yeah. Mate, that's
And
a lot of hours, Scott. I
yeah,
mean, how was that on you mentally in terms of I know the effect it has on me when I have a hard week, a long week, but thankfully it's generally like what I'd refer to as a bad week here and there. But to do that repetitively, 15-hour days are
yeah.
long days. Like, how was that on you mentally, on your relationship? Because it's a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was hard, It does. It puts a lot of strain on your body as well.
Mm,
With all the equipment you're having to use, obviously all the moving and handling techniques that you're doing, every single day, all day, every day. You're just constantly in pain. You're tired. You get really frustrated as well. Then obviously your family are getting frustrated as well because they're not
mm,
seeing you. Obviously you're trying to obviously earn a living to provide for your family, and
mm.
yeah, it's trying to get everything to gel. Um, but no, it was hard. I mean, once I left, um, I thought, what am I going to do? My time now, I've got all this time back now. It was great. So, when I left care, what did I do? I did some kind of like driving jobs, kind of parts, kind of delivery, kind of things like that. Um, so after that, I worked for an online retailer. So I was one of their installers. So doing like kind of fitting their integrated kitchen appliances as well. I was with them for a couple of years. So I absolutely loved it.
Mm.
Loved the job. It was hard going. Um, Especially when you've got a washing machine to carry, up a top floor flat,
Yeah, yeah.
then take the old one back down again, and there's no lift. It's hard, but I absolutely love the job. But you were self-employed, but they treated you as you were employed,
Mm.
just without the benefits.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd go in the morning, you'd um, fill up your van with all your appliances, hope to get your paperwork for all your drops, um, and you knew exactly what appliances were getting fitted and
Mm.
what some, if you're lucky, were just going to get dropped off. Customer will fit it themselves. That was great. You kind of prayed for that, especially if it was a top floor flat as well.
Yeah.
And but you were if you didn't, if you happened to be ill and you had to take a day off, they'd fine you, they'd charge you for being off.
Really?
Yeah. Um, if there
I guess if you were
was,
self-employed, there must be some kind of loophole
yeah,
because that don't sound like it's correct or legal.
yeah. So you were charged £60 for taking a day off, which would obviously get deducted off your week's wage.
What they owed you, yeah.
Yeah. Um, you weren't you weren't allowed, because you were self-employed. What they told all of us is that you weren't allowed to take out your own public liability insurance. The reason why we wanted to is because if any damage was caused, the company would charge you for the damage because you're classed as
Yeah, yeah.
self-employed. Um, you would unfortunately get some customers that would kind of take the mickey and say that we'd caused damage when we hadn't. And it got to the point that we were taking videos and photos as soon as we're walking into a customer's home, doing the
Yeah.
whole job
Mate,
to leaving.
I had some experience of that. So years ago, we used to do insurance contracting.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a team of lads on, and we were approved contractors for some insurance companies, and that got like that
Yeah.
because it's a very different demographic to work in. I mean, fortunately for now, most of my work as a decorator is high end domestic. And the people are glad to have you there. They want the room decorated, and it's very different. With an insurance claim, you've got somebody that maybe wouldn't normally employ a decorator,
Yeah.
but they've had a leak, say, from the bathroom and it's damaged the lounge. They didn't want the lounge redecorated. It has to be done because it's damaged.
Yeah.
So straight away, you're part of an inconvenience. Even though you're there to put it right,
Mm-hmm.
you're almost part of the problem. The problem has led to you being there. So you're not received with the same enthusiasm as you would on a private job. But we had circumstances where, customers, I say customers, they were policy holders at the time, would claim that the lads had damaged the floor on the way to the room we were working in, or scuffed the wall moving equipment on the way. And then it would be, well, your lads have scuffed the wall, now we want the staircase redecorated as well as the lounge. And it come to that with us. So I had to get the lads to do exactly what you just said, which was video from point of entry to the room you're working in. Protect the floor from point of entry to the room you're working in. Take a slow walk through with a video, making sure you pay close attention to any damage you see, scuffs on the wall, scuffs on the floor, things like that. As a precaution, and it's horrible to have to work that way. One circumstance I had with one of my lads, so I was always made sure at the time, and it was some years ago now, we used to send the lads out with like 10 dust sheets, a Henry Hoover. Everyone had those in the van as standard. And we always said, never use the customer's things, basically. And one particular lad had gone to do a job, I think it was down Oxford way, if I remember rightly. Got to the end of the day, late Friday, job had run over for some reason, something had gone wrong, and he had worked late to get the job done, and had packed up at the end of the day. And as usual, was pack up, hoover up, leave. The customer, the policyholder, had come in and gone, "Oh, it's all right, love. Don't you worry about hoovering up. I'll do that. It's late. You get home to your family. Blah blah blah." And then the Monday morning, we got the claim come in to say that the tradesman had not hoovered up after themselves, and as a consequence, the customer had had to hoover up themselves with their Dyson Hoover, and they'd gone over some brick dust and blown it up. So next thing we got was a claim for like a £350 vacuum. And the lad who had, I've rung him up, said, "Mate, what's happened here? Were policyholders claiming they've had to vacuum up after you?" And he explained, a very honest bloke, so I believed him, had explained the circumstance and had just said, they insisted on hoovering up. And the reality is the Hoover was broke. They knew exactly what they played it like a fiddle, because to them, in their eyes, the insurance company are paying for it.
Yes.
They don't. No, the insurance company come to us and say, "Well, you've got to replace that Hoover now." you know, and then it's that biting your tongue, going back to the policyholder and going, okay, pick your new Hoover, you know, and you know that you've been stitched up.
Yeah.
But there are, with certain industries, they're out to get you,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It's
Yeah.
not nice.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, there is some customers who do. They take the mickey. They see an opportunity. Especially, if we were fitting an appliance and had lino flooring and it was already a wee bit torn or a wee bit
Yeah,
shabby,
yeah.
they would see that as, right, I can make a claim here against, this huge, multi-million
Yeah.
pound, online retailer. And it was getting to the point we were going in and we were kind of just working into conversation, just kind of small talk with the customers that we are self-employed, if any damage is caused, it's us or ourselves that's got to pay for it. It's got to come out of our own pocket. The company don't pay for it. And you can see it's kind of, the penny's kind of dropping with them. They're starting to think, oh, right, okay. And when we started kind of saying that kind of subtly, obviously these claims started dropping, because they were realising, right.
Well, that's putting a face to it, isn't it? Looking you in the eye
Yeah.
and thinking, do you know what, Scott, I'm going to try and stitch you up here for 500 quid
Yeah.
is a lot more difficult than doing it to this big anonymous corporate entity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd say that's a good tactic, really,
Yeah.
is to put that forward. But you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to do it
No.
full stop, should you? Same as
No.
what we used to experience. The policyholder would always try. I think people get that thing, don't they? If you're going to put a claim in, get as much as you can out of it,
Yeah.
and that's the sort of mentality around it, which is all well and good if the insurance company are footing the bill, but when they're passing it down to the tradespeople, it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. So, so I was with them for a couple of years, and like I said, I absolutely loved the job. So I did all the integrated appliance installation training. Did all that, and I said to my wife, says, you know what, I could do this myself. Why am I, because the you're roughly nowadays, I think you're roughly about 120. You can be 120, anything up to about 190 pound to install one appliance, paying for one of the online retailers. But the guys fitting it, they're getting an absolute pittance,
yeah.
out of that. And obviously, yourself as a business owner anyway, there's risk and reward.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously the company is going to make more than the person. Also, they're taking more risk. But I thought I could do this myself. I'll try it. I'll test the waters. So that's how my business was born.
That's how Brig Installations
Yeah.
came about.
Yeah, so I started off obviously doing all the both integrated and freestanding kitchen appliances, so your dishwashers, wash machines, ovens, coffee makers, microwaves, kind of things like that. And I'd, it was all right at first. It wasn't as busy. There wasn't as a demand for it as what I kind of hoped. And I've always been kind of quite handy anyway. And so I'd joined my builder
Okay.
as well, just to kind of try and get more work as well. But being on my builder, I'd noticed there was a lot of demand for handymen.
Yeah.
From the really obviously kind of small jobs.
I think it's a common thing, Scott. Like when I speak to customers, and probably I'm guilty of it myself. The small jobs are hard to get done.
Yeah.
Because a lot of tradespeople are busy and don't want to take on the small job. And I find myself, I had an instance this week actually, where I look at some of the small jobs as not really being cost effective.
Yeah.
Because me personally, my business model, because we generally do bigger work, I don't charge part days. So my flat rate is a day.
Yeah.
So if a customer contacts me and wants, and for example, like this week, I had a bathroom ceiling. So the customer had a very high-end bathroom installed, new plastered ceiling, and just wanted the ceiling painted. And I said at the time, I said, is there anything else you want doing? because either way, essentially, and this is the way that I run my business, everyone's different. I won't charge less than a day
Yeah.
because generally speaking, I can't use the rest of the day. So even if I turn up to a job and I'm only there for 3 hours, the reality in my business is I don't have enough of those small jobs to pair 2 or 3 together. So that's either I then have to go back onto a job I'm currently running or take the rest of the day as an admin day.
Yeah.
So I price part days as whole. I don't do half day pricing anymore. I made that business decision some years ago. That's not knocking people that do half day pricing. That's up to you. But I explain to my customers where I'm like, look, it's possibly not cost effective. If you want to utilize me for a day, I'm more than happy to do more than what you just want, but I'm going to charge you a day for that area.
Yeah.
And this customer in particular was like, no, looks fine. That's what I want done. So he wanted send me my work online and was very particular and wanted me to do the work. And we did. And the reality is I was there for 3.5, 4 hours total, but still charged a day.
Yeah.
But to me, that can seem very expensive to do a small job. So there is that market for people
Yeah.
that are set up to do the small jobs or the multiple small jobs. And you speak to customers, and I'll have people that will say to me, "Oh, Russ, can you recommend anyone to come and that door's not quite fitting right?" And I'm thinking to myself, the chip is I know they're not going to want to come and adjust one door. It is like too small for them. I think years ago there was a phase you'd see it on people's van, no job too small.
Yeah.
But I think the reality of it now is that some jobs are too small. They're not worth the effort or the breaking of an entire day to try and fit them in.
Yeah. No.
So to have you like in your position that utilizes that niche in the market to do that, man, all credit to you.
So because there was such a demand, I thought, well, I'll start looking at the really small, kind of easy jobs, just obviously kind of find my feet. And it's just snowballed from there, basically. So, I mean, fast forward to, 3 years later to today, like painting and decorating and doing like kind of laminate flooring is the two biggest in what I kind of do now. I actually can't remember the last time I fitted an appliance. It's just,
Okay.
it's just the way it's gone. The demands kind of changed, but um, I was listening to when you had Dan Rolfe on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd said something about he kind of felt like what's the word he used? Like a fraud sort of thing.
Like an imposter syndrome.
That's right, yeah. Because you didn't have the qualifications, kind of things like that. So I've kind of felt like that myself. As well. I've never pretended, to any customers or anybody that I've got, all these qualifications, kind of this, that. I'm always trying to be honest and upfront, with everyone. But when I kind of first started, like I've always done all my own decorating anyway. And I was getting constant, kind of inquiries from customers. Oh, Scott, I'm needing this decorated, I need that decorated. Well, I don't offer that service, and because so many was kind of coming in, I thought, right, let's see what I can do here.
Yeah.
So, a very good kind of customer of mine, she just kind of happened to need it, quite a lot of kind of decorating work done in the house. So I said to her, I says, look, this is my plan. This is what I'm kind of thinking of doing. If you let me use your home as a guinea pig, so to speak, basically you'll get charged for the materials, and just kind of let me at it. She was over the moon. Couldn't believe it. So, I mean, I've done so much research. I've spent hours and hours and hours kind of just looking at different products. And the paint and decorating community have been absolutely fantastic. They really are a great bunch, I find myself, like speaking to Stuart or to Murph, kind of Sherry, kind of colour burst as well, kind of
Yeah.
over the last kind of year or so, just wee
All
bits
good
of,
people, mate. All good people. Shout out to all
yeah,
you guys.
just a wee bit of advice kind of here and there, and yeah, they've kind of helped me, given me advice to do. Is that right? Maybe not do this way. Kind of try this way, try this product. But obviously, there is obviously some people that like to kind of just slap a bit of paint on a wall and call themselves a painter. But see, I've tried to separate myself, like from others, and actually, look into what I'm actually offering.
I'll be honest with you, Scott, and this will upset a few. So I say qualified. Um, I did a City and Guilds in painting and decorating back when I was like 16, 17. But I did that through insecurity because I took my business over at 17. So the reason I got the qualification was my age. I already knew how to decorate by then because
Yeah.
I'm third generation. I've been born into it. Literally started going to work with my dad at 8. I was running jobs for him at 15. And I'll be honest, I didn't learn anything at college that I didn't already know.
Yeah.
I was after the qualification because I felt that at 17 to approach an adult and be like, "Hi, I'm Russ. I'm the business owner." They would look at me and be like, "Who's this kid?"
Yeah.
You know. And I thought just having that backup of having the qualification to go, yes, I'm qualified. Here's my City and Guilds. Here's my insurance. Blah blah blah. I'm legit. Do you know how many times I got asked for my qualifications? None. 24 years I've run the business now, and I have never, ever produced that City and Guilds to anybody. So, and I don't say that from a point of view of the qualifications are pointless, because there's like, I know these days it's like MVQs, MVQ 2, 3, 4 levels. Like if you're a youngster and you're doing that, all credit to you.
Yeah.
However, I know a lot of decorators that are self-taught, time served. And in fact, I'm third generation. My granddad started the business. My dad never got qualified. My granddad never got qualified. My granddad did an old-fashioned apprenticeship, but had no qualification.
Yeah.
He did it straight out of the army, come out of national service, and started the business. My dad did an apprenticeship, old-fashioned with him, but no formal qualification
Yeah.
to it. To many extents, I did that just when I was a lot younger. And even once I was qualified, I worked alongside my grandfather, and I picked up. I'm a great believer you can learn a lot more on the job
Yeah.
than the college. And certainly today's day and age, the college quality of education ain't where it needs to be. You don't come out of college ready to be a decorator and
No.
run your own business. And there's a lot of people I speak to and have sat in that chair there. Dan Rolfe being one of them, Foxy being another, and these are just people off the top of my head. To the point I don't think as a decorator, you don't even ask a question. I don't sit there and go, "Oh, what level are you?
Yeah.
What qualification did you get?" Because I know full well that there are decorators out there that are better than qualified decorators just through doing the job.
Yeah.
And it is the one industry, admittedly, in the construction industry where, because what we do isn't dangerous or structural, it's not regulated.
Yeah.
We don't have the regulations that gas fitters or electricians have for obvious reasons when it comes to danger. Do I think there should be some sort of licensing? Maybe. I think you should be able to prove competence.
Yeah.
I know other countries out there like the US and Australia, they have like licenses for their like construction industry. Would that be a bad thing? Not, probably not. It'd weed out the cowboys, and in many respects, again, there'll be people screaming at listening to this now, going, "No, absolutely not."
Yeah.
But I think if you could, the one thing with the paint and decorating industry is the reputation of anyone can do it,
Yeah.
and that there's cowboys. But like, by the sounds of what you're telling me, you've spent hours and hours and hours doing your research and self-educating yourself on how to do the job. That means you are what you are.
Yeah.
So getting a licensing scheme of some variety just to prove basic competence, a little bit like a driving test.
Yeah.
Not to say you have to go to college and do this or you have to do that, but just to prove competence, I think would actually add value to the trade.
Yeah.
And then, that value then is translated into wages, essentially. That's my own take on it anyway. I haven't got strong feelings on it. I think it's perfectly fine as it is, But do I think that would be a negative? No, I don't. I think having some sort of regulatory body would potentially add weight to the trade, really. But yeah, sorry, mate, I've gone off on a right tangent there. But just to back up, really, that I don't think that you have to be qualified in a formal qualification in order to be a good painter and decorator and have a good business.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, as soon as people kind of hear the word handyman, they think, right, this boy has zero experience. He's got the cheapest of tools. He's probably using retail paint. Kind of cheap brushes from B&M, and he's probably got knockoff, chop saws and kind of drills and things like that. Because seriously, but I've invested in myself, obviously not just financially, but kind of educationally as well. Like the services that I offer, I've spent a lot of hours behind the scenes, trying to perfect it and master it, like in my own house, or finding a friend of mine and practicing theirs, and yeah, basically just try and perfect it.
All credit to you, mate. Yeah, you can't deny anybody their dream. Like if that's what you want to do and you've put that time and effort in, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
In any trade, I mean, we've touched on the ones that are regulated for safety purposes. Obviously, you have to get qualified in those. But for any, whether it's painting, decorating, carpentry, floor installation, plastering, things where you can turn your hand to it. Bottom line is, if you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can deliver a professional standard of work, you are what you say you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess from me sat here, as long as you're delivering professional quality work, you are that profession.
Yeah.
There's no need to feel the imposter syndrome of,
Yeah.
do I belong? And social media it floats both ways on that. It's great for the community and the help, and there's some fantastic people online. You've named a few. And generally speaking, in the painting and decorating industry, you are well supported.
Yeah.
But there's also the issue of looking at some people's work and thinking, oh my God, because there are some incredible tradespeople. Yeah. Can be intimidating. And then you've got the negative side of it. You've got funnily enough, actually, I'll recount this one now. Well, I don't get a lot of this, but the trolling. And but while I was waiting for you to come here, I was responding to somebody because I was having a little chuckle to myself. And this will be very niche for painters and decorators. But I put out a little reel on painting a radiator, real minor thing, colour matching a radiator to the wall. And I put this reel out ages ago. Then all of a sudden it started to get some traction, and now I'm getting the trolls that come out of the woodwork. Yeah. And some chap started, what did he say to me? Basically criticising me for using a water-based paint, right? I'm going to call it as it is. A dinosaur came at me, right, saying that the only thing you should use on anything like that is oil-based. Yeah. Criticised me for using a water-based adhesion primer. And then went on to say, because I was pointing it out, I said, look, it's new technology. Essentially, you need to educate yourself on water-based systems because in many ways they're a lot better than the old oil-based systems. People separate it water and oil, but within water there are so many different things. You've got your enamel water-based, polyurethane water-based, acrylic water-based, the water-based adhesion primers, the hybrids. There's a lot within that umbrella. Anyway, this chap then pulled out the comment of, he said something like, it amuses him when a new decorator tries to tell him what to use when he's been doing it longer than I've been born.
I know that's.
But I'm like, hold on, a new decorator. I've been doing this 24 years, mate. If that's new, I hold my hands up. But it just, I mean, that's irrelevant. It just amuses me as to why people feel the need to sit there and come out with a comment like that, and to think that time served like translates to skill and knowledge.
Yeah.
It fucking don't. I'll put that out there now. I could stand behind this whole, I've been doing it 24 years, and I've said this on a few occasions. My knowledge is only as good as the current systems.
Mm-hmm.
So my knowledge in current paint technology is only 5, 6 years old. You know, yeah, I've got 10 years worth of knowledge on oil-based paint. Most of them are obsolete. Most of them are out of production. So what good is that to me now? You know? And I think, yeah, anybody listening to this is probably on the same wavelength as us because they're listening to podcasts and dinosaurs don't know what they are. But if you are a stray dinosaur and you're listening to this and thinking, you know, just have a little think to yourself about the comments that you make, and throwing those things out there of how long you've been doing the trade. It doesn't mean anything.
No.
You know, your knowledge is built up by a wealth of experience. So there's value in that. I'm not taking that away. But when you stand behind things, you know, because you're old school and because you've been doing it 30 years, well, do you think
you've been doing it wrong for 30 years?
Well, there is that, Scott. But also at the same time, why are you using a mobile phone then? Because, you know, everything was perfectly fine before that, but you've adjusted to new technology as a mobile phone. Do you drive a car or do you still ride a horse? Because back in the day, everyone rode horses and then somebody invented a car. And it's the same with the construction industry and new building techniques. So you can't just hold on to what was and rubbish everything in front of that. Just purely because, if I'm honest, it's because you're scared and you're not sure. I guess it's laziness as well. I call it as it is. With my industry, with painting and decorating, there was a big changeover from oil-based to water-based paints. And there is a degree of people that just don't want to. They don't want to have to relearn it. You know, they don't want to have to take everything they knew, threw it away and start again. But you can't rubbish. If that's what you're doing, fair play, stay in your lane. But don't try and throw somebody else under the bus and say that they don't know anything just because they've moved on to new technologies. There you go. It's my little rant for the episode. But yeah, mate, keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep soaking up the information, speaking to your peers and the people around you, because a lot of the time that's the best knowledge you're going to get.
No, absolutely. It's like I went to the Edinburgh paint and decorating show earlier this year, and it's like I don't belong here, you know.
You absolutely do, mate.
But I'm going down to Coventry.
You are? Yeah. Fantastic. I'll see you there. Yeah. It's a great show, mate. It's a great show. It's the biggest one in the UK. So I've only been to a couple of them myself, but it's a good couple of days, mate.
Yeah. But I mean, what I kind of loved about, I know, like what I've heard is that Edinburgh is absolutely tiny compared to the English ones.
Oh, okay.
But you know, going there, it opens your eyes to obviously new products and technologies and a different way of kind of doing things as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, I went there with the mindset of this is going to be educational. You know, this. I'm going here to help my business. And it did, yeah. So I mean, I came away like with new kind of thoughts and ideas and new different things, you know, to try.
You'll find that at Coventry, mate. It's good. It's good to meet a lot of the people behind the brands as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the brands, I mean, like our sponsors, for example, crowbar this one in there, but Q1, they always have a stand at Coventry, some great people there, and you'll find that a lot of the people behind the brand, the regional managers and that will be there, and you can have in-depth conversations, which is good. I'm glad to hear that you're coming down, mate. We'll definitely see you there. So, in fact, there's always a meet-up, 1 o'clock on the Tuesday in the bar outside. Everyone goes for a pint. So I'll see you there, Scott. So, but yes, mate, it's definitely good to get involved with that and just keep doing what you're doing, mate. I mean, advice from me, whether you probably don't need it, but it's all you can do, mate. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And social media does provide a fantastic insight into a hell of a lot of free knowledge now.
Yeah.
And you will find that a lot of decorators are more than happy I mean, me, myself included, mate. If ever you need any advice on anything and I can do it, I can give it, I will. But I get people reach out to me online all the time, asking questions on how I did a certain thing or what product I'd recommend. I'm always happy to answer because I'm a firm believer that a rising tide raises all boats, and that if we can raise the industry as a whole, then it raises the value of the industry as a whole, and therefore we all get to do better in business. We all get to charge more money. And I think probably within the painting and decorating industry, the most difficult thing is to get it recognised as a legitimate skilled trade, because there is that thing hanging over it of it's like bottom tier when it comes to the trades in the UK. It's not the same elsewhere. If you go to Australia, America, France, decorators are really highly regarded. For some reason in the UK, it's got that whole, if you can piss, you can paint.
But how straight can you piss?
True that, yeah, true that. It's true, isn't it? Like anyone can paint, absolutely. But how well is it going to look once it's done? You know, there's levels to this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's what 80% prep, 20% paint.
Yeah.
You know, it's everything.
Prep hard, paint easy, mate. Painting's the easy bit. I always say that to my customers, you know, because you go to a customer's house and you might start, we're going very trade related now, but you might start a job and you could do a 5-day job and you could do 3.5 days of prep and make the room look worse to a customer's eye. And then the last day and a half, you paint it out and all of a sudden it looks magnificent. But it's all that prep work that gets you there. So, 100%.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like I'm on one of the Paint Warriors forum, and
shout out Kev.
In
fact, I think Stuart McLean's one of the admins on that now, isn't he? Yeah.
And there was a call. It was either a post or a comment. Basically, somebody had been told that taking like 2.5. No, it wasn't on there at all. It was on a video on TikTok. It was somebody I follow, and somebody had commented saying that they were told that taking 2.5 days on a mid-sized room was really, really slow, and they basically a builder had told them to speed up. And I says, well, no, that's not slow. I mean, depending how bad like the walls and ceiling and everything else is, you could be spending 4 or 5 days just on paint work.
Yeah.
So every job is completely different.
Absolutely, mate. You get those inquiries, don't you, where people say how much for how much for a lounge? It's like, Jesus Christ. You could range from a day's work to 2 weeks' work. It's how long's a piece of string. I mean, on that subject, it's also, we get this where you have to gauge your customers' expectations.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, and social media plays a part in this, you can prep a room. Like you could take a room this size, right? For reference to anyone listening, small studio, probably half or a third of the size of an average house lounge. You could spend 2 weeks in here, making sure that every corner is perfect, every little chip, dent, knock is perfect, that there's no application marks, everything's sanded as smooth as glass, all the woodwork's perfect. But is your customer going to appreciate that? And is your customer going to see value in your service to that? Yeah. So if I come in and quote 2 weeks working here or quote a couple of grand for a room this size, a customer's going to go, what? Yeah. You have to, and this is one of the things with my quoting process, I always try and gauge a customer's expectations and ultimately deliver the product to those expectations, not my own. Yeah. I could spend weeks and weeks and weeks on any room that I do if I had free license to do so. When I'm delivering a quote based on a price, I'm always seeking to get a customer's expectations down. That's the biggest thing for me when it comes to quoting, is what are you wanting? What level do you want? Are you looking for perfection? If so, we can deliver that, but it's got a price tag. Yeah. Or do you just want it repainted? Yeah. Because ultimately, the reality is, as a tradesperson, if a customer says to you, look, mate, I don't want any, just repaint it. I just want a fresh coat of paint, exactly the same colour as it is now. We've just got a few little scuffs and marks where the kids or the dog have bumped the wall. That's your job for the day. So yes, you can go in and repaint a lounge in a day for a price tag appropriate to that job. But then it wouldn't be fair to come in and critique it and go, well, hold on, Where was the dustless sanding system? Why isn't it a spray finish? I can see a little dink in that wall there. Why is that not filled and finished? There's that disparity to me. It's like they're totally different products.
Yeah.
It's like going into town and buying a t-shirt from Primark or going and buying a t-shirt from Gucci. Like, you can have either.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to tell me which one you want, and I'll sell it to you.
Yeah.
You know, from my perspective, I don't turn my nose up and sort of turn around and walk into a house and go, "This is how I work. So this is what I'm going to price to deliver you." Because to me, that would be like walking into Tesco's and me stood at the front of Tesco's going, "Here's a Tesco finest steak. This is what you're having today."
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they just popped in for some mince to make spaghetti bolognese, but you can't force it on them. You know what I mean? You have to judge what the customer wants and deliver a service appropriate to that. Again, it's a danger with social media, isn't it? Because if you put pictures up of a lounge that you finished, and you've always got somebody, some dickhead that's going to pipe up and go, "Oh, look at that corner," or "Look at that. I can see somewhere where you haven't filled." Well, do you know what the spec was?
Yeah.
You know, the spectator, do they know what the conversation was with the customer? Maybe that's exactly what the customer wanted, and the customer is over the moon and has paid you and kept you up to date with tea and coffees all day.
Yeah.
That's a win. You've delivered exactly what the customer wanted. The same way that if, you know, that person goes into Primark because they want a plain white t-shirt and they walk out with a plain white t-shirt, they're happy with their purchase. They didn't want to go and spend 400 quid at Gucci. It's the same in the trades and the decorating industry, and there's this weird stigma attached where everybody seems to think that every job has to be flawless, otherwise it's a reflection on the tradesperson.
Yeah.
Pull your head out your ass.
Yeah. No,
Is my I'm not saying that to you, Scott. Like, to anyone that's, you know, sat there waiting to jump on people, there are levels to the game, and the customer is king. Essentially, they're the one paying my bills. That's who I cater my services to.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was doing a job for a regular customer, and they had these big wardrobes in their bedroom. And the salesperson says, "Look, we can't be bothered getting them moved out and dismantled and all the rest of it. Just paint up to it." It's like, "Are you sure? You know, is this what you want?" Yeah, it's right. Like I said, they just wanted just a fresh coat on the walls. That's it. Just paint up to these wardrobes. It's fine. It's only us in the house.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well,
Exactly, but what are you going to do in that circumstance? Turn around to the customer and go, "So I don't want the job.
Yeah.
Unless you get that out and I can do it properly, I don't want it." No, you're not. You're in business.
Yeah.
We're all here because we're trying to do the same things. One of the things that frustrates me about certain people is we're all here just trying to earn a living and generally support and provide for our families. And knocking other people down doesn't do you any favour. So why are you doing it? And as I said before, if we can raise the industry as a whole, you know, when we're trying to raise the profile of painters and decorators in general, it doesn't need other decorators attacking each other and knocking each other's work down. That's not going to benefit anybody, you know? So it's a little bit of a mindset thing, isn't it? I feel like I've gone on like a rant about social media trolls now, Scott. So let's pull it back to you, mate. Let's talk about you again. So yeah, sorry about that.
But yeah, you know, when somebody obviously hears the word handyman, they think, you know, the cheapest. This is going to be the cheapest of the cheap. Doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not the most expensive, but I'm definitely not the cheapest.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of where I want to be. You know, I've kind of trialed out, you know, raising and dropping my prices over the last kind of few years. You know, obviously, if I'm getting too busy, slightly, you know, raise the prices, see what it is. Obviously, if I get too quiet, kind of bring it down. But I'm now where I am in my pricing structure. I'm at a nice, you know, happy medium. You know, I don't get far too busy where, you know, I'm getting completely overwhelmed, but I'm not getting really, you know, I'm not getting too quiet. But it's like they say, you know, there is some people that kind of price themselves to be a busy fool. You know, they're far too cheap, and you know, they are just out of depth.
Yeah. This is it again. There's people out there that are good tradespeople, but that doesn't necessarily make you a good business person.
Yeah.
And they're two different things, like running a business and being a tradesman, two very different things. Just because you might be the absolute pinnacle of your trade does not mean you're going to be the pinnacle of running a business. And as you said there, it's not all about just collecting more work.
Yeah.
You know, if you can earn £100 a day and be busy 5 days a week, it's no different to earning £250 a day and working 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I know which one I'd rather do. But a lot of people would look at that and go, "You've only got 2 days work a week." Oh, well, I'm busy. Busy don't pay the bills. Money pays the bills. Similar, you know, I'd rather work 1 day a week for £500 a day than work 5 days a week for £100 a day.
Yeah.
Personally, and it's developing that mindset. And for me, I don't say this as a point of like, oh, I'm some business guru. I've just been through it. I've been through it. I've had 24 years of experimentation, making mistakes, going up, going down, playing around with my wages, my customer demographic. And all of my knowledge now, most of it comes from fucking up, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So I don't say it from a point of arrogance. It's just, I've been there, I've made that mistake. So I'll pass that knowledge on. If I can help somebody to not have to make the mistake to learn what I learned, then why wouldn't you play that forwards?
Yeah.
So, because again, I feel that it benefits everybody. So there's a lot to be taken from that, mate. There's a lot to be taken from this conversation.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed the Andy's Man Club
Yes.
band a few times, Scott. Have you been?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I've not been recently. I've just been busy, you know how it is. But yeah, no, I've been quite a while. So going to Andy's Man Club, that's actually what's kind of helped to be able to open up and talk and try and help others.
Can we talk about that, like in terms of if we go back to the beginning and like what led you to go there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously, kind of going back, I was adopted. That wasn't really a factor, in my struggles or anything like that. You know, because of how it was approached, it was normal. You know, but my childhood, it was hard. It was difficult. There was a lot of kind of drink involved with my parents. When if they both hadn't been drinking, everything was fine. You know, as soon as they both had to be drink, the fighting, the constant arguing, would start, and it was that was
When you say fighting, mate, are we talking verbal or physical?
both. Yeah,
Okay.
both. So obviously, kind of have grown up with that from such a young age. It was hard. I absolutely hated it. My wife, she absolutely loves Christmas. She just loves Christmas. She goes all out. We have the same disagreement every single year of when's the Christmas tree going up.
Yeah.
And I was brought up with 12 days before comes down 12 days after. But she would put it up in November if she could. First of December is when it should. I think we've agreed. I'm sure the date changes every year, but yeah, if she had her way, it'd be up, in October, November. Christmas tree would go up, but I've never liked Christmas. I've never enjoyed it at all. It's just been another day, and I was just having a blethering away a couple of years ago. And she says to me, "Why are you such a grump? At Christmas, why don't you like it?" And I says, because I don't actually have any, nice memories of any celebrations, whether it's birthdays or Christmas or, family get-togethers or anything like that. Because anything like that was always an excuse for my parents to have a drink. which would then obviously turn into fighting and arguing and things like that. And essentially, I says, well, I don't actually have a memory of
Yeah.
having a good birthday or having a good Christmas, So I don't know how to act, um, and
That's it's really sad, mate.
yeah,
It's really sad. Sorry to hear that that was your experience of it. I understand it.
yeah,
And Christmas for many people, mate, is I did a video last year about it. It's a really hard time
yeah,
because there is this really polarized thing with Christmas where you do have people that have got the very Christmassy, happy, the background and the memories, and then people like yourself
yeah,
who Christmas wasn't a happy time,
mm,
and it's hard to get that emotion. I haven't got an emotional attachment to Christmas at all.
yeah,
I'm probably in your camp, mate. If I'm honest,
mm,
the way I look at it now, I'm not a big fan. But I'm very conscious. I've got children, and I try to hide that
yeah,
because I don't want it to be their experience. I don't want my negativity around it to be pushed onto them. So yeah, it's quite a difficult time for a lot of people.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you went through that, mate. And I can completely understand on those supposedly celebratory moments that would instigate drinking. Therefore, the negative cycle that is attached to it.
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, same, with my birthday as well. So it's like 6 years ago, my wife, she threw me my 30th birthday
Mm,
party, the most amazing night ever. And that was probably the only like birthday I've had as well where it's not turned into excessive drinking and fighting and falls out. It was just such a nice evening.
mm,
Um, and so it's taken me 30 years to actually have just one nice birthday, um,
yeah,
as it were. And but yeah, I mean that's what I said to us is I actually don't know how to act, you
at
know,
Christmas.
any kind of celebrations because I don't have the memory of it.
What's your relationship with alcohol? Out of interest.
I don't drink full stop.
Okay. Yeah.
I always told myself that if I ever had children, I was not going to give them
Mm,
the same childhood that I had growing up. And we've got two boys, and yeah, I don't drink. I've stuck to that.
I can understand that with your experience. Absolutely,
Yeah,
mate. Yeah.
because I know what it's like, and but society's weird and strange in a way that it's not socially acceptable to not drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have to justify not drinking.
Mm.
Um,
We live in a culture surrounded by it, though, Scott, don't we? Everything. Well, it's what you've just illustrated perfectly there. Every celebratory event in Western society is topped off with a drink,
yeah,
good and bad. It's like, I've had a really good day today. Let's celebrate. Let's open a bottle of this. Or, oh, I've had a really crap day today. I'll have a beer to chill me out because I've had a bad day. It's my birthday. Let's go for a few drinks. It's Christmas. Let's have a drink. It's our culture, isn't it?
yeah,
We're very heavily motivated socially around alcohol. Can go deep into the whys, but and the conspiracies behind that. But it's tough, I guess. And I've spoken to a few people, as you can imagine, doing this that are sober, and that's given me real insight into that
yeah,
element of how it must be to not be a drinker and then be frowned upon for it,
yeah,
as if there's something wrong with you or that's odd or what's the matter with you? Why don't you want to drink? It's the only drug in the world that carries that stigma
yeah,
around it, where you're frowned upon for not
yeah,
partaking.
yeah, no,
So, but all credit to you for standing by it, mate. It's a strong move to make. I've got my own experiences around alcohol. So my father was a drinker.
mhm,
Um, and I drink. I do drink, although I'm not attached to it in any way, shape, or
yeah,
form. So I socially drink, but yeah, I don't drink at home.
yeah,
And I don't. I can quite easily go 3 months and not touch a drop. And then, to be honest with you, celebratory stuff really. If something, I'm trying to think, the next thing I've got coming up, I think, is an awards night, or in fact it might even be the decorating show. I know people get together and go for a few drinks. It'll probably be the next time I have a drink.
Yeah.
So I do tend to operate that way myself. But yeah, it's interesting, mate. But we're gone off again. Tangents, and his man club.
Yeah.
Get into what led you through the door there.
So I was 22 when my mum passed away. Then 4 years later, my dad passed away as well.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, mate.
So my mum, she passed away. It was down to alcohol, just how much
Oh,
she had
wow.
drunk over the years, and it just obviously destroyed her liver. And when my mum passed away, I was with this girl, and it wasn't the best relationship. And when I was trying to grieve when my mum passed away, I was called selfish. I was told just to get over myself and to kind of concentrate back on her. We're not talking, months or years after. We're talking days after the funeral. Um, so everything was just buried deep down, and just, right, this is obviously what I have to do and kind of move on. So fast forward 4 years when my dad passed away. I'm now with my now wife. And when my dad passed away, I was basically grieving for both parents at the same time. It just hit me, and it was hard. I was in the horrible, dark place. Because that's what it felt like, because I'd had to kind of buried all the grief from when my mum passed away with a previous relationship, to now being in a relationship where I could be open and express myself, and kind of things like that, and be allowed, to be able to, to grieve my dad. Just all those feelings just rush straight back up. And there was times where it was getting so bad that I tried to take my own life, and I just couldn't cope. It was just so overwhelming. Like I said, I'm 26, and I'm grieving for both, even though there's 4 years of a difference. I'm
Yeah.
grieving for both parents at this exact same
Bereavement
time.
and grief, mate, has no time scale on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think was frustrating, it got to the point where I was ready to get help. I was just constantly angry. I didn't have a grasp on things. I was had kind of suicidal thoughts, kind of things like that. But it got to the point where, right, I've got two young boys here. I need to sort myself out. So I approached a counsellor. I was explaining my situation, and I was told, because it had not been 6 months since my dad passed away, they couldn't help me. It's like, well, I'm actually kind of grieving for my mum as well, who actually passed away 4 years prior. Well, doesn't matter, can't help you. And to cheer yourself up, and to put yourself into that frame of mind to want to get help, to be knocked down like that just set me just right back.
But it would, mate. I'm sorry to hear you had that. I mean, one of the things I think as men, that's a big step to reach out and actually say, I'm struggling, I need help.
Yeah.
it's huge. And to get knocked back, I think what that does for most people is put them straight back into a shell where they think, okay, I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I'm sorry that was your experience of
Mm.
that. And that was a counsellor, like a private counsellor, or
Yeah, probably one. Again, not want to name any names, obviously,
yeah.
but one of the is a well known organisation. Yeah, they had a 6 month rule if you're with grief, that if a bereavement had happened within 6 months, they won't help you.
That's crazy. That
Yeah,
to me, if somebody's at point of crisis, whether that's a day, a week, or a year after a bereavement, there's got to be somewhere. How
yeah,
do you turn around to somebody and say you've got to wait 6 months, because you can do a lot in six
yeah,
months? It takes 6 seconds to decide to end your own life,
yeah,
and to be told that there's no help, that you're not worthy of help, or you don't fit into the category
yeah,
for 6 months. I mean, I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
yeah.
Did you find any alternatives?
The only person that ever helped me is my wife.
Well,
She
thankfully, you had
she
that.
stuck by me. She put up with the arguing, me being in this just horrible, horrible place again. Um, I obviously still live with this guilt, the way, looking back to the way I was, and how our home life was, the way I was. But it was, I wanted to get help, like at the
Mm,
time, especially in my dark. I want to get help, but to be knocked back. But she stood by me, and I'm thankful for that. Every single day.
yeah.
You know,
Such a common theme, mate, with my guests that have sat here is that strong support of a partner.
yeah,
And it seems to have been the difference for a lot of people. And
mm,
there's that point of, if that wasn't there, what would have happened? And it's generally quite a worrying thought. I mean, you mentioned there that you attempted to take your own life.
yeah.
Just in context of the timescale of things, was that after you'd been told that there was no support, or was that before that?
Um, there, yeah, yeah. I would say connecting it afterwards. I had a plan in my head. What I was going to do. Um,
How long for before you attempted the plan?
um,
I hope you don't mind me pushing on this, Scott, but
no,
it's just
no,
because I feel that there's so many men
yeah,
out there that have probably gone through it and possibly even attempted it and nobody even knows.
yeah,
And I think to normalize or get out there that thought process, just so people can understand and resonate and think, okay, mate, yeah, there might be somebody listening to this now that's in a similar place.
yeah,
And I think it holds real value to normalize it and let people know that you're not alone. If you're in this place, you're not alone. You've been through it.
yeah.
And to just
Mm.
explain how it came about, how it happened. And I think it's valuable. That's
Yeah.
why I'm pushing it.
No,
It's,
no,
so I hope you don't mind me
no,
asking
not
these
at all.
questions.
Not at all. Um, so I'd probably say that a good year or so, I was in this just really, really kind of dark place, and I came very, very close, to doing it, and again, obviously talking about kind of other guests as well. When people obviously call you selfish, things like that, um, you do you go when you start kind of you're in that moment. You don't think about the selfishness or anything like that, or what you're leaving behind. You're kind of tunnel vision.
Mm,
You're in that moment. This is what you're going to do, and everything else just kind of gets forgotten about. And yeah, I was a complete breaking point. Um, it was, and it took a long time for me to admit to my wife as well just how bad I was. I mean, she could see I was hurting.
Mm,
She could see that I was desperate, to try and get help. But because I'd had that knockback, prior, still a couple of years later, I'm still in this really, really kind of dark place. And she could see just how long I'd been hurting for and wanting help, and obviously she finally got me to the doctors. Um, I was put on antidepressants, and for me, I know it doesn't work for everybody.
mm,
For me, it did work. I was able to think a lot more clearly,
mm,
and be a lot more rational as well. And fast forward a couple more years after that, I came across Andy's Man Club as well. So walking through the doors with them is the absolute hardest thing you will do. Any man walking through those doors, but once you're in, this just weight just gets, completely lifted
mm,
off. It's completely non-judgmental. There's certain topics that you're not allowed to talk about, which is completely understandable because you don't want to influence, other people and
yeah,
decision making depending on medication and treatments
yeah,
and things like that. So, but you're actually given a chance to talk. A ball gets kind of passed around. If you're holding the ball, it's you that talks. Everybody else listens, and sometimes that you need. You just need somebody just to listen without
mm.
giving advice sometimes, and just try and just let everything get off your chest.
So powerful, mate. I've heard of Andy's Man Club a lot. I'm very well aware of them. But I think I've spoken to a couple of guests who have been, but I've never really pushed into how it is,
Yeah,
like the process of, because again, there could be people listening that this could benefit that might be thinking, that might be interested in attending, but don't really know what to expect. So how, like, little bit to lean into that, the process of attending an Andy's Man Club meeting, how does it go?
so every single club meet on a Monday night at 7 o'clock,
Mm,
7 till 9. The only time they don't meet up is a bank holiday. But if it's not a bank holiday, every single Monday night. They also do online sessions as well if you're not able to
mm.
get to a meeting. You don't need to book. You just literally just
Literally just turn up.
turn up. So they have facilitators, standing at the door to meet you. Obviously, they'll kind of guide you through, and in our group. So when you first kind of walk in, there's a big, huge circle that you sit in, um, and it's just kind of an icebreaker kind of sort of thing.
Mm,
Then you get put into like smaller groups. As well, and that's where you kind of go into your more in depth questions of like how's your week been, what's a positive from your week, and is there anything you want to get off your chest? And obviously that's your chance to it could be doesn't matter if it's good or if it's bad.
yeah,
If it matters to you, it matters to
yeah, yeah.
everybody. But yeah, I mean it's completely non-judgmental.
Such a good initiative,
Yeah.
mate. It really is. And it echoes one of my thoughts, which is that, because there's that misconception that men don't talk, men don't want to talk. And obviously, the catchphrase of the podcast being let's talk. And that's what you're saying, doing
Yeah.
today. And I think there's so much proof to me now that actually we do want to talk.
Yeah.
We just need to be heard,
Yeah.
need somebody to listen and know that we're not going to be ostracized for talking.
Hmm.
And there's that generational thing that came probably before us, of that stiff upper lip,
Yeah.
men, just get on with it, man up. And it's been so detrimental to men for so many years. And just getting it out there that you can be a strong alpha male,
Yeah.
provide for your family, be masculine, yet still talk when you're upset, still have feelings, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like getting that out there now, and it's initiatives like Andy's Man's Club, to name but a few. Like Band of Builders do some great work. The Lighthouse Club, construction-based charities do some fantastic work. And there's more and more of these initiatives popping up. Men Who Walk and Talk, there's a group around here that do that, and I think that's brilliant as well. All of these initiatives, I think, are just helping chisel away
Yeah.
at that. And hopefully this as well, hopefully people like yourself coming and having these conversations will just help chisel away at that misconception and realise that we need help.
No, absolutely.
We men need help. And it's not just men, obviously everybody, but there's an irrefutable statistic that suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50 that needs addressing.
Yeah.
I
had actually done a video for Andy's Man Club last year, and a lot of the guys, like Stuart, there's a few other tradesmen as well, like on TikTok, that took part in this video that I made. Off my own back, it was just to try and keep everybody talking. Keep mental health and men and relevant.
Yep.
And it's on my pinned video on my profile, and in 2022, 507 construction and trade workers took their own life. 503 of them were men.
You let that sink in. Yeah. That's horrendous. So that was 2022.
So
22.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I think the statistics now are pushing up. I think we're closer to 700 a year.
Yeah.
Of the latest ONS stats, which is horrific. It's over 2 people a day. And if you try and conceptualise that, like that's 2 families every day that are getting that knock at the door, which is just horrific. And if something can be done to prevent it, and quite often, the conversation, I put a clip out this week, actually, Lou from Gafflow Resin Finishes, who came and sat with me a couple of weeks ago, and he recounted an instance where he took a phone call from somebody, and it was only a year later or something, he found out that phone call literally saved that person's life, stopped them from taking a course of action that they wouldn't have come back from. It just shows the power of talking.
Yeah.
And that we need to talk, and how important it is to talk, and how important it is to provide a space to do that. And that's one of the great things about Andy's Man Club, is that providing that space that's so desperately needed. Getting men to realise that it's okay and that there's somewhere to do that. That's the big task at hand, I think, because the trajectory of suicide is on a up. It's not on a down, which is horrible. It really is. And to think that there's lives out there that can be saved through something as small as a conversation. It seems so menial, but so big at the same time.
Yeah. So, I mean, when the reason why I initially kind of started going, I felt myself going back into kind of, the darker kind of waters, and I thought, no, we're not going to relive in the past here. Let's try and nip it in the bud, kind of now. And I started going, opening up, not being judged, being able to talk. It was a huge weight just getting lifted, and it's kind of that is what's kind of saved me again from spiraling back down.
All credit to you, mate, and I really appreciate you sharing that as well, Scott, because you're putting that out there to everyone that's listening now as well. So yeah, really appreciate it, mate. There's people like you coming and being open like this and talking so openly about your struggles and your battles that will help normalise it.
Yeah.
That will help somebody listening that can resonate with what you've said. that will take this and think, okay, like I say, I'm not alone, and possibly even, I mean, if it were to come about, you okay with people reaching out to you?
Pardon?
Would you be okay if somebody were to reach out
No,
to you to ask any questions about Andy's Man Club
no,
or?
absolutely, yeah. That's what we need to do. Is we need to keep it relevant, and not gatekeep it, you
Yeah,
know. Because I'll say that the figures they're horrendous.
yeah.
They really, really are. But no, I've always been open to helping others as
If
well.
they do, I mean, just so I don't forget to ask you this, but if somebody does want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it, or where can they find you to do that?
The easiest probably would be through my TikTok. Probably
So it's Brig Installations on
yes,
TikTok.
yeah,
Yeah. Are
with
you
one
on
G.
Instagram?
No, you know what?
No.
Yeah,
Get on it, mate.
going
Get
back
on
to
it.
obviously with dinosaurs loving oil based. Yeah, I've never went on Instagram. I
Mm.
feel old, you know.
What, too old to be on
But
Instagram?
yeah,
I thought TikTok's more for the kids. Yeah, it took. I was the other way around, mate. I started
yeah,
it off on Instagram, and I looked at TikTok for a lot of time and thought, "Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if that one's for me."
yeah,
But I've got accounts on all of them now. But I think Instagram's a good one for what we do because it's so
hmm
visual. It's
right,
based on visual and being able to put posts up of stills of your work. And we, I mean, it took a while to build the audience, but we get work from Instagram now.
right, okay,
And I'll just find Instagram's the platform for me and my decorating business. I mean, my decorating business isn't on TikTok. The Talking Tradesman is. For my decorating business, I would say Instagram's probably our primary social platform
hmm
because it just seems set up well for it. It's very
yeah,
visual, rather than I don't know. I guess TikTok's very visual as well, but I find TikTok's more videos, isn't it?
yes, yeah,
Instagram is a little bit easier to promote still footage and photographs. So
right,
when it comes
okay.
to decorating, and
Mhm.
you've done a nice feature wall or whatever, it's quite a good platform to showcase that.
Yeah. See, it's I've heard a few people obviously kind of raving about Instagram and how great it is, and obviously how
Mm,
shy they were, starting it out. But now that they do it and they've got used to it, they said it's absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
there's a
But
good community on there,
yeah,
Scott. The decorating community in particular on Instagram's good. There's a
yeah,
good network. But I've met some fantastic people and fantastic decorators just through Instagram.
yeah,
In fact, the Coventry meetup is a good indication of that.
uh,
There's a lot of people that have met just through Instagram on there.
yeah.
So get on it,
Um,
mate. That's your homework for the weekend. Take it home. Get yourself an Instagram account.
yeah,
Get it set up, mate. I'll give it a share. We'll get you a
yeah.
few people following you. But
No,
absolutely, mate. So yeah, back to the your situation. So that's what I want to ask you is how are you now?
better. A lot better. I'm more at peace. Um, probably, yeah. I'm able to manage, the poor side of mental health a lot better. I'm aware of like my triggers, kind of what to look out for, and I mean, I've not been to Andy's Man Club in a while. Several reasons. I just feel I'm in such a good place at the moment, and I've just actually been really, really busy with work
Yeah,
as well. But I know it's there
yeah.
if I do, and that's the thing is that there's no contract to sign. You don't pay
Mm,
to go or anything like that. There's no pressure to go every single week. It's there for when you need to go, and you need to get things off your chest, and
yeah. You've described it perfectly, mate. It's your coping mechanism, and I think that's really important. It's that and for other people that would know that when you do have a bad
yeah,
moment, that you've got your where you turn
yeah,
at that point in time, and that is such an important thing to learn about yourself because, unfortunately, again with the construction industry, a lot of people's crutch is alcohol
yeah,
or substances. You're having a bad time life ain't easy. You know, it's a big cliche statement that, but it isn't. Everyone's going to go through hard times, whether that's financial, whether everyone's going to experience bereavements, everybody, because the inescapable truth of life is we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Morbid. Um, but it is, and unfortunately, that means that you can't go through life unaffected by bereavement.
Yeah.
And these moments, they're going to test you, they're going to try you, and it's these things that are really going to take a good whack at your mental health. Having your coping mechanisms in place, healthy coping mechanisms, so you don't end up spiraling and turning a bad situation into a worse one. You know, that's there's a little bit of self-responsibility there, because we've got to look after ourselves. You know, if you're not going to look after yourself, who's going to do it? And knowing that you've got that coping mechanism of, if something goes wrong, you've got those tools to use, delve into, like Andy's Man Club, or you know, your partner. That's so important. You know, and I'd probably say that to anyone listening who is struggling is have a little look at that. Have a look at the tools you've got around you for the bad times. It's easy to enjoy the good times as if the bad times are never going to come. And this sounds really pessimistic, but they are. They're around the corner. Something's going to happen at some point. And just knowing that you've got those tools to refer to in the bad times is all you need to do. It's like, you know, keeping the candle in the cupboard in case of the power cut, or the flashlight in the cupboard. I went back into the Victorian times with the candles, but you can have flashlights. But keeping that flashlight in case of the power cut, it's the same as your mental toolbox. It's knowing where to turn when things go wrong. And by the sounds of it, you've done that. So all credit to you, and all credit to you for passing that information on today as well. It's really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is still such a stigma around not just mental health, you know, but mental health with men as well. And yeah, we just need to keep talking about it. Like I said, you know, it's not something that you should, you know, be gatekeeping. You know, if you have a tool to help that could help somebody else, you know, tell
Pass
them
it
about
on.
it.
Absolutely, mate. And then that's what you've done. I really appreciate that, mate. And I'm glad to hear that you're in a good place now as well. That's also really important. So yeah, it's your journey, man. And it's still got plenty of mileage left in it. So I'm sure there'll be other times where you delve into your own toolbox, and there'll be more experiences to come that you can pass on. But is there anything that we haven't spoken about, Scott, that you wanted to touch on?
I'm not too sure. I don't think there is.
That's normally a good answer, mate. That's normally a good answer. If there is, it's normally there. So
Obviously, kind of coming up to doing the podcast, I was going through, like, you know, what's going to be good to talk about, what shouldn't I kind of talk about things. But I think I've spoken about what I wanted to.
That's all that matters, mate. And it's not, you know, it's easy, and I do it, where you sat there and you think of other people and you think, are they going to want to listen to this? But there's somebody that will. And I've never done this for the numbers. It's never been a case of, right, I want to rack up 10,000 downloads an episode. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd be over the moon if that happened, purely because the message is getting out to more people. But it's never been the driving force of it. And I've always thought, if one person can take one thing away from this conversation, it's been completely worth it. And it goes on the metaphorical bookshelf now of episodes that people can refer back to and might look at and resonate with what you said. People might not resonate now. Something might happen in 5 years where they'll resonate with what you've said today. So yeah, I really appreciate you being a part of this whole thing, wherever it's going. One of the final guests to sit in this studio, this incarnation of the Talking Tradesman. Been a pleasure having you, mate. Massive thanks again for the huge effort you've made in being here today. A big thank you to the Funky Peach for the guest merchandise I'm about to give Scott to take home with him today. Thanks to you guys for supporting the podcast and sending our guests away with a little something as a thank you for coming down. Is there anything that you wanted to finish off and say?
It's been an absolute pleasure, meeting yourself and coming down here. And
The pleasure's all mine, mate. By the sounds of it, I'm going to see you in a few weeks in Coventry as well. So we'll have another catch up then. But for today, that is all, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you to each and every one of you for listening. Haven't said this one in a while, but please like, share, follow, and subscribe the podcast. It all helps. But yeah, thank you for listening.